Yeah. Perfect. Muted. How about now? Good. Awesome. So welcome to this talk about FlutterFlow, and we'll dive right into it. So before introducing to FlutterFlow, I do want to talk a bit about Flutter itself. Okay, what FlutterFlow uses behind the scenes to create all the apps. Okay, so to introduce myself just a bit, my name is Filipe Barroso, and I work as a senior Flutter developer for a couple of years now, and I'm a community organizer of Flutter Portugal and Google Developers Group in Lisbon. So about Flutter. Flutter is a UI toolkit developed by Google, and it's not a no-code, not just yet. I'll talk about FlutterFlow, the tool of no-code to develop Flutter apps. But before, I want to tell you about Flutter and why is it different and what's exciting about Flutter. So, why is Flutter different? First of all, of course, Flutter is a multi-platform coding framework that allows you to code for mobile devices, Android, iOS, and others, desktop I mean macOS, Linux, and Windows. And then, of course, you can build for web. And to give a bit of context and why is Flutter different, let's assume the following, that on your left part, you have the final result of your app. And the final result is always in the native code of the device. And we really need to think about abstract ways. It's just a device that has something. And the device can be identified by different interactions with the hardware, right? We have the platform, which has a canvas. Normally, it's just the screen. The screen can be a touch screen, so it has events that can reply to the user touching or other kinds, and also some services. The services are more hardware, right? Can be a GPS location, Bluetooth, sensors, audio, camera, etc. Can be really a lot of things. And what Flutter does, immediately what I can tell you about, is that Flutter draws directly on the screen and also access the services directly. What does this mean? Well, to understand a bit better what does this mean, let me tell you how other solutions found their way to develop mobile apps, desktop apps in general for devices. Well, what was the solution people found to develop for multiple devices using one code base? Well, we have the more traditional one and the more oldest one that is through the OEM widgets. I mean, with original equipment manufacturer widgets. I mean, if you remember, those who remember Nokia, to develop for a Nokia, you had to use their SDK. To develop for other devices, you have to use their SDK to codes in their language, in their systems. You were restricted to that. Luckily, for Android and iOS, what showed up was this Android SDK, and then the iOS also SDK, where you can develop your own apps. But that means what? If you want to code for Android, you had to use their coding language, Java, Kotlin, and iOS, you had to use Objective-C, Swift, and precisely. And this means for each device, you have your own codes, which means it's really hard for that. So with this problem ahead, some solutions appear, again, in an abstract way. Some leverage the web view of the screen. So web view through HTML and the DOM structure. You could draw on the screen by writing some HTML, right? And then you could have a certain bridge that can be in different languages, the most common being JavaScript. A solution that I can mention that applies this concept is, for example, Cordova. Cordova leverages this a lot. It's just a web view. You have a language associated to it. You code once, and wherever you can run that web view, you can run your app. So if you can run the web view on the mobile device, you can run your app. But this was really not enough because not everyone wants to code in a web view like this. So, and the bridge can be different languages. So that a new solution kind of appeared, one that they call a native build, right? One that leverages the existing OEMs, but creates a bridge between the services and the platform. And this can mean that with only one language, programming language, the most common again is JavaScript. You could code accesses to the platform, to the service with only one language, but it's still a bit hard because if the original equipment manufacturer releases a new SDK, that framework needs to update itself, the code. And if you want to be on the bleeding edge of the development, you need always to wait. An example that applies this concept is, for example, native scripts or tools like that they are multi-platform but native builds. So this is one of solutions. But still, this bridge in between, even that the final code is compiled, there's always this bridge that gives extra burden, extra layer in between your apps. So it makes kind of a sluggish and hard to make it performant, right? And yes, exactly. PhoneGap uses Cordova, so it's the phone web view. So leverage that more. But the PhoneGap appears to have this one language access to all, but under it uses the web view components. Right. So it's a good point, excellent point. One solution also well known is React Native. Native comes because they really use OEM widgets from the device's final product, right? And with this bridge, they gives you the functionality of being reactive to all the coding. So really nice. However, Flutter really disregards all of this, even the OEM widgets of the device itself, and it will build directly to native, okay? This is what I have to tell you. It's really building directly to native, building the screen and drawing on the screen directly. So a bit more about that further on. So what makes the Flutter so exciting? First of all, it's a different way of coding. You don't have to code in an imperative way. It's more declarative. What we do is we have a certain state that can be any information, a string, a context, a list, an endpoint, whatever. But what you are going to build are these functions. You write down the rules, constraints to how to show a certain state. And in the end, you have the UI. So with this kind of structuring of a declarative language with an asterisk, but with this way of thinking, it's really predictive what you are going to end up with. It's just like a function. You insert some data, you know what should be the result. A bit about Flutter framework, and this is important because of why is Flutter so flexible and able to build for so many devices. First of all, we have let's call it the Flutter framework as a whole has two parts. It has this framework part written in the Dart language, that is all this green area, that has all the components for UI coding. On top of it, you have the design guidelines for Google design guideline called Material. On the right, you have the Cupertino one built on top of certain widgets. And of course, some other companies have built their own design guide systems on the left, on top of widgets, or even on top of their existing design guidelines. I won't go much further, but what I want to tell you about is the second part, and this is what really caught my eye with the Flutter framework, is Flutter has a different component that we call the engine. And when you want to build Flutter app for a certain device, you leverage the correct engine for that purpose. So if you are going to build for mobile, for Android or iOS, you leverage the engine coded with C++ that leverage Skia. It's just a library on top of OpenGL to draw all the components directly on the screen. So, and the new renderer that is Impeller, and then of course the language itself and the text. But afterwards, if you want to build for the web, well, you leverage a different engine to compile your Dart framework into HTML, CSS, using Canvas, or even now more recently, you can, without changing your code, you can compile your app to WebAssembly. It's still in beta, but you can already play with it. It's in a strong development, but without changing anything, you only need the engine to build the app. So this is quite powerful. So whatever you need to build your Flutter app, if there's the correct engine, you can run for it. So I spoke about about widgets, but what is a widget? A quick question. These are just some examples of running apps. Can someone tell me what is not a widget? Just throw it up there. Okay, I will tell you immediately. I've been giving some hints, but the only thing that it's not a widget is this Android button bar that are the buttons for the Androids. This toolbar on top, and everything else you see on the screen is a widget. And it's a widget, and it's something that is drawn directly by Flutter into the screen. So what does this mean? It means that when you see a button like this, the Start Exploring, that can have the same look and feel as a material guideline button, in fact, is the exact clone, the exact replication of that button UI in Flutter and it's being drawn on the screen directly through the Flutter framework. So that's why when I present you these arrows to the canvas, it won't go through the OEM widgets, it will draw directly on the screen. So this is really powerful. And that's why I say this, but it's the closest thing I can say, that Flutter is much more closer to a game engine in terms of rendering all the components on the screen than any other framework out there to develop apps. And why is that? It's really because of this, because Flutter takes care of the full rendering stack, draws everything pixel by pixel on the front end, on these apps. So whatever you are, it's a display, the Flutter draws directly the screen there, okay? And taking this in account makes the apps really solid, smooth, and it's really noticeable versus other apps. Yeah, sure.
So just taking into account what like this recent Vision Pro thing, like the Apple AR VR stuff, does that mean, can I interpret this to mean that like Flutter could target that as an output canvas and just like you buy your app and like a Flutter app will work on the Vision Pro?
Well, I don't know what's going to be the screen on the, but let's assume that, well, there's a lot of assumptions we can make for that because it's AR and all, but assume that some random, during the weekend, some random guy, crazy, draws an engine to run any app on the Flutter.
Yeah.
So on the Vision, so it can, or maybe, I don't know, there's a lot of assumptions. I cannot tell you about the Vision, but if Vision runs apps, iOS apps or something similar, well, nothing stops by running an iOS app made with Flutter. So maybe you don't have to go so far to create an engine for the Vision Apple, but maybe just, I saw that they run Netflix and things like that. Might be an app, but well, there's a lot of assumptions. It's not still up there, but it's something possible. Yeah.
Right. I guess what in the same way, you know, Unreal game engine or that, you don't care what game system you're playing, you're targeting game engine. The Flutter is essentially the same thing. It's not like you target.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It really leverage that. Leverage the so many computer languages. They target the machine that they are going to run at, right? And Google has experience with that, with Golang, with the most oldest language, C++ does that, right? They compile to the machine that it will run. So Flutter learns from that, learns also from React Native in terms of React starting coding declarative, and applies them to Flutter framework. So it's really, I've worked with Android native for 10 years. No other platform like this caught my eye, and I went on full 100% on Flutter because of these decisions. Just moving a bit further, so 99% of your time when coding Flutter will be on top of here, okay? Just the material design, Cupertino, you can interchange. And it's kind of weird for people even to understand this. Is so Flutter draws everything on the screen that you can have a Cupertino look and feel app running on Androids. You can have the latest and greatest iOS Cupertino version, the same look and feel running on iPhone 4. You know, it's kind of weird. Why is that? Because it draws everything on the screen. Just to reiterate on that. And the code itself, it's quite, being declarative is quite easy to understand. And when you read it as one go. You don't go back and forward. Let's go here together. So you'll have something centered. That centered, of course, is as one child that is a column. A column we immediately can see is something vertically, and a column can have multiple children, right? And these children, the first one will be Olá Malta Fish on top. We can start to imagine that, and then immediately afterwards, it's going to be an icon that is a star with the color green. And the final result is going to be always the same this center column and text are our functions, and then we concatenate with the state. In this case, it's always fixed. It's always the same text, always the same type of column. So we always end up with this. So we can expect this code to run in every device that Flutter runs exactly the same. I will go through this faster since this is a no code, but I just want to give you a heads up why Dart was picked for this Flutter framework. Because when we are coding, we have always two mindsets: the develop mindset, and then let's go and deploy. And Dart comes with the batteries included, which means that when you are developing, you compile using just-in-time compilation. And this together with a small virtual machine that when you are coding, it will run directly on if you are running your app and coding on your device, on mobile device or on your desktop, what means is any change you do, any small change you do to the code, the virtual machine will catch it, the just-in-time compilation will compile it, the virtual machine will catch only the differences and show it immediately. And this is what the Flutter team always is selling, the hot reloads. And it's definitely a development experience that it's really great to advance. And of course, when we deploy, we use the ahead of time compilation, and of course with the runtime, and then you can have your app running on the x88 or ARM, depending if it's iOS or, for this example, iOS or Android. And this is how Dart was picked, and this in other reasons, and that's how we can build Flutter apps. So just to reiterate, with Flutter, we have full control of the rendering stack. We have reactive views, this kind of declarative, without any bridge, so everything is run on screen. It really has great development experience with hot reloads, and it's fast, smooth, and predictable UI. So fast, and only in 2023, the Google team started releasing improvements of performance for Flutter, because so far it was really not necessary. And the main improvements was for web, not for the mobile devices. And of course, the big advantages of Flutter is that you can deploy for multiple platforms using one code base. So really cool. So just showing some data. This is from statistica.com. They haven't released a new version yet. We are waiting for 2022. But we can already see that Flutter since 2019, they released the version 1.0 and latest 2018. It's catching up really fast, and it already surpassed React Native in terms of development. And just for a little heads up, I do have some noteworthy apps made in Flutter with in Portugal. You can see already that idgov.pt, the app from the Portuguese government, is made with Flutter. We have the IRS app is made with Flutter. Okay. That's different. That's different. One thing, it was built with Flutter. Another thing, if it's implemented or not. Yeah. And of course, there are other ones: Jira, Nosnet, Mio, email parking, Carton Staples, other apps, entertainment, Super Save, and all of it. These were just got on by the community and written here. And yeah, Flutter is a UI toolkit. And this is a sentence from 2019. Flutter team, they don't want to mention that this is a UI toolkit, but in fact, it is what it is. It's a UI toolkit to build. And how amazing will it be to have all this power of creating apps, but without code? Just drag and drop, multi-platform, and all. Yeah. So, whoa, how curious. Tell me. Cool.
streaming, when we are designing, be able to have a board for streaming.
Yes. You have to be aware of the implementation. Maybe I'm not sure if there is already a plugin for that, but you can play videos, you can play for sure streaming, even with a web view. But we can talk afterwards and I can pinpoint. Flutter can do anything you can, unless there's no plugin for that for web or other places, but you can develop that. Nowadays I work with a company that for recording purposes. You record your call and then you can review your call on the platform. So it's a matter of, I have some ideas, but we can talk about it afterwards. Okay. Sure.
Does Flutter, the engine, have access to all sources that the device exposes? Like, are any that doesn't have access?
Good question. So nowadays I don't mention that at all because there is a package out there for that. But in case some years ago, I will say, in case there's, for example, you cannot access the battery of the device, there's no way to connect. Well, nowadays, back then you will use some what we call platform channels. Now we use FFI gen. So what does this mean? You can, by leveraging the native code of the device you're at, so it can be a browser, can be in Android, Kotlin, or iOS, of Swift, you can create some code that on one side of the device exposes the information. And then on the side of Flutter, you can create a package that wraps that language and exposes that information to Flutter. So that's why when you go to pub.dev, that is the repository of all the packages and libraries of Flutter. If you look for battery, let's look for streaming. Maybe there's not much, but there's a camera. But let's look for battery. Yeah, it's a service. Yeah, that's a bit more complex. So definitely. So for example, we could install this library, and we will have access to the battery of the device. Okay. And this library will make the battery available for all devices here noticed. Okay.
And it's a stream in the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's a stream that goes and will send an email on
So
when you go to publish your app, this is just a dependency that is included.
yes.
So if it's on iOS and whatever other devices, they're only unique to the devices, but from your perspective, you might be having one whatever it handles at the compilation stage.
Exactly. So wallet. That's really specific. We'll need to talk afterwards, okay? Because there's a lot of things that you can connect. Okay. Wallets can be. Yeah. No, I can't hide this. Okay. So yeah, there's a solution for if you don't want to code Flutter. There's FlutterFlow to the rescue. FlutterFlow was started by two ex-Googlers. I mean, what's not started nowadays by ex-Googlers, right? It's a tool for low-code, no-code developing apps on top of Flutter. So immediately what I said so far regarding Flutter applies to this. So when you are building something with FlutterFlow, you'll be able to build your app for multiple devices. Besides this, just to give you a bit more, be a bit more hype to FlutterFlow, it's also being pushed by the Flutter team itself. You can see mentioning the FlutterFlow tool mentioning in some events, official events of Flutter. So it's being pushed, and there's a collaboration between Flutter team and FlutterFlow for sure. Okay, and a lot of things to say, but some apps already built with Flutter. It's all the one go, but it's in the Y Combinator 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So it's ongoing and a project that has really a good starting point, given it's a partner and all. So what is this FlutterFlow tool? Nothing better than explaining FlutterFlow by a hands-on experience, okay? So I will just start about the UI. I will show you, again, it's ugly UI, but I'm not a designer. I just want to implement these things. So immediately what you see is what you get. You have this app you can run immediately. You have these screens. You can change pages depending on where you're at, okay? Now, for example, this folder I created for authentication. User lands in this page, can enter without login, some buttons here. And when you are building, or you drag and drop some elements, like a button here, you can have a card, all this stuff. Or in my experience, it's easier to just look at the widget tree here and drag any item you wish down here. And it's not only this basic widgets you have. If you wish, okay, you wish to have a static map, you can simply drag under the place you want, and you'll have it positioned in place. I'm in a smaller screen, so it's a bit harder. So please bear with me. Let me see what static map. I can place it here. I should have to minimize. As soon as I drag a widget like this map, on the right, I have all this, everything you do in Flutter in terms of resizing, sizing, content, you can set up on the right panel. So you have even the initial position, the Mapbox API key, you have to include it here, but you can also call it immediately from different sources, the API key. You can increase the sizes, you can decrease, you can change all the values around on the right panel, okay? But more interesting is not the building part, because there are so many solutions that build UIs and drag and drops, but are what they call here the connects. So the connect means that you can connect directly. At first is Firebase, but you can connect to other backends as a service, or even your own. But I'll focus on Firebase. It's really easy to start a project, and they will follow you and help you set up a Firebase console. And then as soon as you have everything configured, everything in terms of permissions of accessing that information, everything regarding Firebase can be handled through FlutterFlow. Even if you wish to manage its contents, you can add more information to Firebase, and assume this is a restaurant app, so this means you can add more data to the app. So like Francesinha special, everything with an egg on top. Just a second.
Is you extract information in Excel format?
No. So you can have different ways of connecting the data. Firebase is one of them. But if you wish, you can connect using. Just a second, I need to. Let me. I'll get there. You'll see. Okay. You can, or you postpone, or you write that information in Firebase and load it from Firebase. Okay. Or you can use other connectors. I don't know them all. I know that, but you need to have that information in some way. But I'll talk a bit further and I'll mention again. You, besides connecting the database directly, it's quite easy. You can have already some structured data, some classes, some objects. In this case, this is a restaurant app. So I built a schema only for the Francesinha. So just a structure that you can reuse all over the app. Also, you can define a certain state that is used all over the app. Here I use a selected state, which means that leverage the data type food item. That means that every time the user picks one Frazenia, it saves it in the state to be reused in many other components. I'll show it in a bit. And also, of course, when the user picks one Frazenia to order, I will add it to the cart. So at the end, the user can have the listing of existing Frazenias that he picked. Moving forward on the left panel, on the connecting part, you can also have, and this is for you, that's why I was moving forward. You can make calls directly to an endpoint. You can define if it's a getter, post, whatever, okay? Exactly. You can expose your information some way and then read that information into FlutterFlow using this. Yes. Into your table or read, post, whatever you want. If you use, for example, Webflow, it's not for Webflow, meta tables, or they expose the data in APIs. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, you can read using these APIs. Instead of using databases as a services, you can call them by APIs. APIs to read data or anything else you want. And it's quite powerful because you don't need to move away from FlutterFlow to test that API. You can make those calls directly on FlutterFlow, okay? You can have, like I did here, and then you can handle it by JSON paths, but even better is you can grab this information and parse it, say, to that data type I said, okay, it's going to be a food type, a food item, and to be more easily used on your app. Continuing a bit faster, you can have upload some assets to the app that are used directly in the app or elsewhere, okay? You can also, and here is more technical, of course, if for some reason there are some business logic that you need to code. For example, I created a function here to generate an image path. I created that, okay, leveraging, does it has foods, or to calculate the total price of a cart in the list. You can code some small snippets of code and call them in the app itself. Or if you're not really proficient, you can create leveraging OpenAI. Of course, nowadays there's something. So, for example, what's a good prompt? Filter all my favorite favorite foods items. Run. What it will give you is really a snippet of code in the Dart language that then, or you edit it yourself, or you wait and wish that it works for you. Maybe it's not a good point. Here it is. You can copy the function, you can use it directly, but more important is that on the right part, you need to say what will the app return, what will the app accept. Yes, it's just to help you out. It will, in my opinion, it's a good way to start. You know, you just, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do here. You prompt the OpenAI and work upon the results that gives you. No. That's a different thing. That's not for FlutterFlow. No. OpenAI just generate the code. You use the codes. It doesn't matter where you get the codes. That's the good part. Maybe that's a different topic. It's a way of this, because you can use ChatGPT, you can use any other AI tool to improve your code, or maybe my opinion is find someone that can build you this function.
No, I know.
Okay. So, and besides these custom functions, you can create also custom widgets. Maybe you can ask a Flutter developer to code even a more precisely widgets for your use case, right? Custom actions and all to use on your app. This is less used, but it's important to be aware of. And of course, there's this theming part of FlutterFlow where you can pick this is based on material design. So you can change all the colors you want, even generate from AI, extract from an image, import colors. And this is going to be the theme, color theme that is used on your app. So anytime you change the primary color, every component that uses that primary color will update accordingly. You can also define your typography. You can add more if you wish. And here are just to create widgets that are really attached to your theme. So that has the background that uses the primary color, text is text from the typography, and all of those things. Okay. This is on my opinion, the best part of FlutterFlow, all these connections and how easy they make it to be used in the FlutterFlow itself. And opening in the last point, bear with me a bit. I just want to show you that besides these integrations, you can of course define the basic components of the app, but here you can live codes in FlutterFlow with your colleagues. This is our source configuration for Firebase. You can have multiple languages here set up, built for multiple devices. Of course, given FlutterFlow is proprietary, there are some pricing tiers for it. For the free version, you can build for Android, iOS, and web, but for other devices, you still have to pay for it. Permissions are just, if you are used to work with iOS and Android, you need to ask for some permissions, and here is where you set them, but not much. You can work with authentication, or just say, okay, what's the kind of authentication you use, Firebase Superbase, and then what's the points of entrance. Push notifications, you can deploy directly your mobile app using CodeMagic, for example, to build for App Store and even Play Store. And you can publish your web app easily directly from FlutterFlow. Normally it uses a Firebase, but you can configure it otherwise. Now, besides these integrations, you can integrate with Stripe for payments, Braintree, Revenue Cat, Razorplay.
It's not about tip the user when streaming.
No, this is just for you to build your app. If you wish to have a component to sell an item, you know, you can be that, or through Revenue Cat to have, okay, the user has to pay recurrent fee or in-app purchases, you can leverage this, okay? Just integrations. And also other integrations are Algolia, Google Analytics, Firebase remote config, and all of this. And they are adding them, even, look, Mux livestream, I haven't seen this before. So you can have live stream leveraging Mux livestream here. So it's one thing answering your question. So maybe Flutter cannot implement it, but FlutterFlow already has a way to implement it. Okay, that was a mouthful, but just to give you a heads up of what's possible to integrate with FlutterFlow. And how easy it is to integrate with your app. So just to play around a bit with the screens, what I'm doing here is there's this Francesinha app that has a homepage where there's a list of items. In this case, are Francesinhas. When I'm building the app itself, okay, I selected to add a list, okay, and in fact I'm going to create a completely new page and say, okay, is there any templates ready that I can use in terms of chat, content, lists? Maybe a list. Oh, I have this list of, sounds good to me. So I can use with my team, call it home, create. I will pick a list from here, this list item, and I'll say, okay, I pick this list item on the left. I go on the right here, I can pick the backend query, say add backend query, type query collection. Immediately it tells me the Firebase because I have Firebase connected. I can select the menu. list of documents is really what I want and say confirm. Now the list it's making the query to database. I will pick only one item because the list is just a list of repeated items, right? I will pick the menu item and I can start saying, okay, this title is not a title, I will click on this icon and I'll say, okay, menu documents and say it's an item with this data structure and it's going to be the name, confirm. Then I pick the subtext and I'll do the same, menu documents, item, data structure, description. I will go click here. Instead of this, I'll say that is menu item, item, structure, price, confirm. For the image, it's a bit more tricky. I might need to use, for example, a custom function that I created already, if you so recall. And for that, I can simply go to custom functions and select immediately. And notice how the other functions, since the return value doesn't make sense for what is requested by these widgets, they only make it available to you to click the generated image path. And that's what I'm going to pick. Yeah. Something went wrong. Tap integer. So I'll remove it just to move forward. But this is FlutterFlow is, even me as a Flutter developer, I find it really nice because if I make a mistake and try to add a widget on the screen that makes no sense and it will crash the app, FlutterFlow will tell you if it's a crashing widget, will say, oh, wait, you cannot do that because of this, this, and that, and will revert your changes. And even if you have some mistake, it will show you here on top the issues, some warnings, some errors, and by clicking on them, you will be forwarded to the error itself. So it's quite helpful, really quite helpful. And let me try to provoke an error by doing, for example, adding a grid view here on top. No, this is possible. This means I'm trying to add a grid view into the list view, but it's asking me, hey, do you want to replace the list view with the grid view, or you want to wrap both of them in a column wrap or in the stack? I can say, okay, wrap it in a column. So if we see the widget tree, I have this list view, and then I have, where's my, I use a row. So it wrapped me a column with a row. No, my mistake. Maybe, no, and I lost it there along here, but basically, where is it? Well, my bad, invalid action. Okay. I'm trying to make here some mistakes and it's not allowing me. So I tried to add a grid view, but it immediately said, okay, you cannot do that, and reverted. So it's quite helpful. So when you are building a FlutterFlow, if there is no errors on top, you can publish with confidence. It won't break on runtime, because that's more important. You want it to break as fast as possible, and FlutterFlow leverage that. And where else I can show you a bit? Let me switch to a different project. This job board. I confess I built this job board today because I wanted to have a more clear example. And when you are ready to run your app, you can simply test it in your device by running this hot or test mode. Okay. And since I'm using the free version, it takes a bit longer. They leverage our time to take the time we want. But with this way, you can test the flow of your app. You can really test it again against the database. And for that, I can even show you the projects. I have Flutter Portugal. I have this database running. So now it's empty without anything inside, okay? I will open the test modes, still playing. Let's wait a bit.
FlutterFlow
Yeah.
is also from Google.
No,
It's free. Or
there's a free version, but this happens. It's slower, has some limitations of even the number of APIs. They have a limit. There are some limitations. As soon as you pay, it's much faster and all.
you need to have previously installed Flutter.
No. And good question. You don't need to have Flutter installed, and that's a great thing because, well, of course, when there's a new version of Flutter, I have to go to all my projects, update them, and see some clashes, some conflicts, fix all of them. FlutterFlow takes care of it for me. Maybe not Google, I don't know. It's a private company. Maybe Google will buy it, maybe other competitors. That's a business thing that it's out of my league. If I wish I could predict the future, so I could buy stocks of FlutterFlow. So again, given it's a free account, we have 11 minutes to use this test mode, but it's more than enough time to use it. Even I already logged in, so I can log in with my accounts. Login. This will show up the screens. I can say, okay, job, no code job ahead, website, google.com. There's this new opportunity for you. 42, create. And this is the app running. As soon as, and when I go here, am I in the correct database? Ah, yeah, so it's immediately added to the Firebase. So immediately added to the Firebase, immediately it's showing on the screen. And so you can code your app live, see real effects and all of it. And I can tell you already that I have this app published, but I can publish here directly on the app. I can open here, and this is already the web app running and the no-code job offer. If I long press, I already am deleting the job offer, but I can add more like live happening live. And I didn't show you, but if I try to create, it's really easy to add validations. It's really easy to add forms and inputs and all of those 9 yards. So the 80% of the apps we need to build, you can build with FlutterFlow. If you need that extra calls for API, extra calls of anything you wish, extra widgets, specific widgets, you can accomplish that by custom widgets, custom calls and all. So it's quite helpful. And the website, if I try just to write Google, they have validations and here is the message. It needs to be a valid website. So you can cross that against real validation. All of this is editable, of course. This is just me using a simple UI just for demo purpose, okay? Just for demo purpose. Create, and it's already showing here. It's already showing on the demo. This is the live app deployed. This is the demo. And if we look why is not updating? Because I deleted. Yeah, just for demo purpose. Here it is. And even if I delete directly the documents, it's not here anymore. Not here. Okay. And that's it. 5 minutes to the 8. That's all I wanted to show. And now I have we have time for questions.
Yeah.
Sure. Shoot away. Questions? Yeah.
If you have a sample in Flutter can you upload it into FlutterFlow?
I think that's a paid version. But what one thing you can do for sure is you can host your app on GitHub and always maintain the connection between GitHub and FlutterFlow.
And finally, what the price of FlutterFlow?
I think it's more than $30 per month, 1 year, and then there's the $50 per month. But you need to check on the website itself.
You can finish to, but now when you have finished to.
Yeah, it's you can pay by the year. You better check. Don't take my word. I'm not comfortable in talking about prices and all because I'm not selling this. I'm just showing the tool, and you can check on the FlutterFlow website and check all the what they have and don't have.
It's producing and uploading valuable APK for the Google Store, Apple Store.
You can release for all of those, yeah, definitely. And even if, I mean, one thing that caught my eye was really because last year, someone mentioned FlutterFlow to me, and they needed some help with the codes. And when they showed me the codes, you can check the code on top right always. I mean, here you can download, you need to pay. These are paid features. As soon as they show me this code, okay, it's not the best thing ever. Yeah, maybe I'll write it, but it's opinionated codes. But one thing for sure is the most important thing in code, in my opinion, is it's readable. Like I mentioned on my talk, during my talk, you could see the center. Here is the same thing. Okay, you have the scaffold. The scaffold has a background, floating action button, background color, the app bar, and then the actions. Yeah. So this code is quite useful. You can, and so what people have been doing is start the project with FlutterFlow, prepare all the screens, and then you can just pay for 1 month, download the full codes or publish or whatever, or the time you need, download, share it with your developer, Flutter with developer, and go ahead, go code it. And I haven't talked fully about FlutterFlow, but it caught my eye, and it's something that well,
maybe you can put it on.
maybe after you download the code, maybe you can, but I haven't looked into that way. I think it's, if you build an app, that's my opinion. If you build an app with FlutterFlow, stick it to it. If you are going to pay more, if you have a running app that is on the stores and published everywhere, what is $30 to keep it steady? If as soon as you download, the human error is greater because changing the code might lead to errors. It doesn't have these safeguards and all of it. So it might lead to errors, and then you have to deploy, build it. And if Flutter, for some reason, there's a new version, you have to update it yourself. With FlutterFlow, it's taken care of by you.
Does it have a capability of multiple people working on the same?
Yes.
You must be connected to use the software, or you can download the software, install it, and work without internet connection.
I'm not sure. This is the app itself. It's fully on the browser. This is just my web browser. Okay. I haven't tried out offline.
But there is a possibility to download the software.
No, as far as I know, there's no offline
So
app.
what is the security or privacy of what you are doing?
Good question. That's a great question. I mean, this is a web app. Well, I have some ideas of how things can be done, but I'm not comfortable in defending FlutterFlow in that regard, saying it's safeguard because they use encryption. I cannot tell you. But nowadays, I mean, there's a lot of web apps running thanks to so many tools that the data that you interact with the app stays on your website, stays on your browser. So that's one thing. But when it goes out and you publish, that's a different topic. Because I cannot, as a kind of security mindset, I cannot tell you that FlutterFlow is not sending analytics or some other data, metadata behind the scenes into the data. But of course, if you are, I'm not seeing a bank using this. Bank will have money enough to pay for developers, software developers, a proper big team to do this. This is applies for the no-code, low-code developers, people who have not well proficient in developing and coding to use this kind of tools. So the same thing you say about, ask about security applies to Bubble, applies to any other tool that uses it.
Bubble doesn't have the option to get it right elsewhere. Bubble, you're stuck on Bubble. Once you post it, then it's got to stay with Bubble.
Yeah, definitely. I was trying now to, this is, so just a second. So After Effects and all, I'm not sure, but it does leverage Rive. What I wanted to show you afterwards, I can show you this one. So you can integrate with the, where is it? Let me just delete this. You have, besides these custom elements, you can have, where is it? I'll just look for it. Right. Where is it? FlutterFlow company. I don't know if there's a legal name for it, but I don't know. These days are, well, kind of hard to say. I'm losing the place here, but I know there's a component you can use to leverage rive.com, maybe. Is it? If do you know Rive? Do you?
I think I know what we're talking about. Something to create animations.
Yeah. Yes, this one. So Rive, you can leverage Rive, download your animation and use it in FlutterFlow. About other ways, I'm not sure. Okay.
You cannot produce APK with Rive.
Sorry?
You can produce APK for stores with Rive.
Sorry again, please.
Can you produce APK for stores with Rive?
APK?
For the stores,
no, Rive is just a tool to develop animations. Okay. I know on a sidetrack they are trying to build a game engine kind of, but Rive is just to build animation. This is the pricing of FlutterFlow. Just check out Pro 70, Team 70. Good question. I haven't tried sounds. About sound, I haven't tried with this. You have to give it a try. I haven't had that requirement. Yep, sure.
The other payment, like you don't choose none of the plans, the base plans. Is it possible to have the code in your machine without paying?
Unfortunately, no.
There is no way to like push the code.
Well, you can clone, you can copy, you can try to copy this. If you have 50 screens, it's going to be harder, right? But I didn't show you this, but it also has this kind of a storyboard to more visually see all the screens and how they navigate between themselves. Okay, this is cool. While you are going to ask me more questions, I can even start building. We have a bit more time. Cool. So just to, while you ask, feel free to ask me questions. What I'm going to build in front of you is a really quickly form for login. Okay, so I'll simply create a new page, but I will be quiet. Feel free to ask me questions meanwhile. And go here. I always use this widget tree. It's easier for me to understand. I'll show the form validation. The form has a column. The column has a text, then another text input, another text, another edit text, text fields. So this hello world is going to be email. This is going to be password, right? I can say this label can be nothing. This label here, nothing. I will call this text input on top right, the text field for email. Check. You'll see it white. Text field for password. Okay. Save. I will select the column so that I align all the items on the left. Okay. It's like so. I'll even pick the form to say some padding around. Give it more on a go. I know there's a widget called spacer. I need this and the button. The spacer fills up the remaining space, so it will push the button here. The button is kind of clunky because I need to scratch the cross-axis alignment of the column to be stretched. This button is going to be called login. Okay. And since I'm in a form, I select the form, first form element, and I can tell, okay, validation on here. Yes, automatically validate while the user inputs. There's going to be something for email, minimal characters, you can say 3, and text validator is going to be email. For passwords, field is required, and no text required. I forgot about something. I can tell that this field is, where is it? Is a password field, and it will immediately give me that high icon to show or hide the password. Okay. Now that I have the form built, yeah, I can go back. I can say this is the login title. Login, I will select login button. I will go to the actions on top right. I even can add some animation here to say when the person opens the screen, it will slide duration for some seconds. Initial position from here. That's it. But the button, let's go to the actions. I just added an animation like though. I can even add some documentation. This is the button to sign in and accessibility and semantics. So, and even for SEO purposes, you can add here keywords, okay? More action, no, well, action, I'm sidetracking, but I wanted to show you this. I can add an action that first will validate the form. On tap, we'll validate the form 1. The form 1, I forgot to give it the name. This is the form for login. So I forgot the name, but no issues because it has connection with the form. Save. If I go to the button, it already showed me its form login. It won't break. Some low-code tools I've tested before, they start breaking when I start changing the name. But here is safe. It's really giving me the confidence to work. But I don't want my actions. I don't want only to, when I click the button, to validate the form. No. I want more actions. When I open this tool, I can, okay, validate the form. After validating the form, just navigate to the landing page again. And besides this, I can add more functions like conditional functions. I can create a lot of more actions around this. I can show you one afterwards, but here I validate form. After it's ready, I'll just navigate to the landing page, close. And with this, I can run the app again. Fix error. I have some errors. Immediately didn't allow me to run. Let's see what's happening. Routing. Login page has root login, which is already in use by login. Interesting. So I'll click. Yeah, I gave it a root in the. If you run in a web page, it has those paths. It uses that path. And since I already created a page called login, let me just rename it to 2. And no more errors, just one more widget for configuration, login. Page shares name, login with other more pages. So there's another page called login. I can edit it. In fact, there is. And now I forgot how to change the name of I will just delete this page. Again, this is not the code, you need to know where in the UI to change things. So I just deleted the other one, so I can delete also this. Ready to run. I will just now is, okay, when the user clicks on this button, I will simply say, add an action, navigate to, and navigate to already shows some pages, and I can select login. That's it. Running. And this was how fast I created really a simple login. And this login, of course, I forgot the most important part. I forgot to, in the logic, to add the login to Firebase. I'm just collecting the data. I'm not logging in the user. So login actions validates the form. And then before navigating the user to the, not landing page, but to the home page.
Members, you want to let some
Firebase.
people access to one part of the app and members to access to a different part of the app. This is possible.
Yeah, you leveraging Firebase. You can say that the user, I'll show you in a bit, okay? In this way, what I'm doing here is just saying that, okay, validate the form and then do authentication, Firebase authentication, login. There are many options here, login. Using the email kind, you can use many other types of login. Then the email field is going to be that name I gave, the text email field. He won't give me other options, like he knows by context what's the password, so it will give me this one, and then the password. That's it. Close and run. Oh, already have one session running to let me know. And so restaurant app, login. I don't know if I have an account ready. So 1, 2, 3, login, and navigated me to this page. But yeah, I need to instant reload. Meanwhile, I'll just quickly go to that project. Oops, not Amble. And I can even say users permissions. I have my, I know it's authentication, ads, com, then 3. Add user. Now I have a user logged in. I can go to my test modes, login. You saw the animation there? Oh. Login, validating, even show the button immediately with the loading screen. And I mean, if this is the restaurant Francesinha price, I add Francesinha, it's picked. Oh, I don't want this Francesinha, remove it. I think it's long press. I didn't press. But you can add more, back, picked, Francesinha, and the price on the button, and pay. I didn't implement the pay. But this price is a custom function. This is leveraging the state of the app, and I can just edit it at will. Regarding your question about the user, you can go to the settings of the app, the database, and here this table is the table of users that was generated when I created the project. But you can add one more field saying is paid, is member, okay. And the title type is Boolean. No, and then in the app or even in Firebase using functions or whatever you want, you can attach it to it. And then you can even filter. This is a more powerful way, but when you are configuring here the permissions, I'm saying the menu everyone can read, but you can say just a specific only authenticated users or no one or only the tagged users. And the tag users, this is not the best example, but you can say only show the data to the user that created that element. So you can really filter out, you can make it personal to the user. And only this section of creating the rules for Firebase, for Firestore, it's helpful. Yes. Questions? Never mind. I was looking for Rive, and of course, since I will use RiverPod, it auto-completed to RiverPod. FlutterFlow uses its own state management. One more state management. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to mention state management. Yeah, and that's it. I extended it a bit more, but I only wanted to show how to build a quick login. Come in.
Synchronize for a restaurant, I need a printer, right? So the printer needs to synchronize with the app. So I need to pull a notification, and my clients in the restaurant will receive a paper.
I don't know the stack. That's a really broad question. I don't know how to answer it.
It's about printers.
I've worked with printers before, broader printers, but it's really specific to the case. It depends if it's API, if it's connected. Yeah, that's too specific. Maybe you can just make a post call to the, but it's specific use case. Depends on the software and hardware. Okay, maybe you can connect with else, but that's it.
It's